Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi with Real Estate Spotlight, and joining me today is Renata Reid, a Calgary Realtor with Sotheby's International Realty Canada, and Leslie Beliveau, who is a professional organizer and downsizer at Less is More. Thanks, both of you, for joining us today.
Thank you, Mario.
Okay.
Thank you for having us.
I'm going to start with Renata as a realtor. How often are you seeing these days people downsizing, especially if they've been in their homes for 25 to 50 years maybe, and that's it. They can't handle the big yard and the big house anymore, and they're downsizing. How often is that?
Well, Mario, right now we're seeing a lot of those kind of downsizing moves. It's a big trend coming. They actually predicted this coming. It was called the great tsunami that's coming, right? So we're seeing a lot of that right now. And so we're seeing, and we're coaching people into what kind of, what to do in those situations when they have been at home for 25 to 50 years. It's not an easy process. And Leslie has been a great help for me to help these wonderful families manage these things.
Okay, then let's talk. Leslie, tell me where you come in on this and what you do.
So essentially, when I meet a family, every family has a different set of needs. So we usually put a in place for what it looks like for them. So are they downsizing their house? Are they moving to a smaller space? And all the moving parts that are involved in that. So what exactly is the needs of the family? So number one, we've got to reduce the stuff. We've got to identify what has to be sold, what's going to be donated, etc. So it's a lot of really the tactical approach is what I deal with, and just the hands-on work of helping families navigate and put together a plan that they can work through as a family and move them forward into a smaller space typically,
Yeah.
is what I'm seeing.
So I'm going to ask first Renata and then Leslie. I'd like your thoughts on this, but is it becoming more difficult today to downsize because everywhere you look, somebody's got a storage place somewhere, right? So not only is their double garage filled with stuff, and maybe their basement and their crawl space filled with stuff in their house, but they also have storage. Like we're accumulated so much, right? And when you think about it, people that have been in homes for 30, 40, 50 years, ton of stuff, right? So the run out, maybe you start off.
Yeah, so I'm going to give you an example right now. I've got a family that is downsizing from, and the parents are trying to downsize, and the family's out of town, and so they're trying to help them, but they have all these things, right? And so coming into town, and they've only got 2 weeks, and they've got to figure out where all these things go, and those storage units. I mean, those things. So I try to coach people they need to say goodbye to all their things, and it's easier when they do it over time before they list the home, I recommend, because when you have it listed and you get a sale, I say to them, you could have an offer within a month
True.
and to move and right away, right? And so when somebody gives you overlist pricing and you have to move within 45-day period, all those things are, where do you put them? What do you do with them? And there could be valuable things in there. And many times people store things in their storage lockers and they don't know. So I try to urge people to go through those things or just give them away, sell them, or manage through those things with your family together. It's very helpful when you have everybody there, because sometimes things get passed on or they get, and that way you're not hurting any feelings too. So it allows families to move in grace. And I really feel that is super important as you're moving to a senior residence or wherever they're going to downsize.
Mhm. Leslie?
Renata's already basically said a lot of the things that I would I agree with. Those, I see all of those elements happening. It's important to involve all of the family or anybody that would be part of this move, that they get involved at the beginning so that everyone can have a say, and then you decide how you're going to disperse of those items and what's the most practical approach. So and I always say there's a lot of departments to moving. So there's what the family wants to take, what the kids or friends will take, what will be sold, what goes for donation. There's always garbage and recycling in every move. So there's a lot of areas that need to be addressed, and absolutely it's a conversation that needs to be had amongst the family, and these things have to happen, simultaneously often.
It
And
does.
quite early on too,
Yeah.
us
Yeah.
added very early on. We try to get people to, if they're going to be moving, let's say, especially seniors, I find if they're going to be moving in about 6 to 12 months,
Yeah.
you want to get that process started as soon as possible, because they often have a lot of things and they might have health and mobility issues that they need to kind of work around. And so we try to, get more people involved, especially family, to make sure that they're as comfortable as possible going through these times that can be difficult if not handled timely.
Yeah. You guys find that it's the older the people, the clients are, the more difficult it is.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
would agree with that. Yeah.
Mm.
I would agree that it's probably a generational thing, but these individuals have worked really hard in their lives. They've taken time to accumulate these things. They've spent a lot of money on them. So they see the value, even though they've owned these possessions for a really long time. So it is hard. They don't want to let go.
Yeah.
So working through that does take time, and the more time frame that you have out from selling is easier on the family, et cetera, to really find the appropriate homes for these things so that they feel better about where their things are going, et cetera. Yeah, it can be challenging for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, I do find it is harder as they're older. I had a 98-year-old client, fully with it, able to really communicate really well where this couple actually was a couple that was 98, and it was amazing. They were incredible people, and they had a wonderful supportive family that came into the process early on. And what I recommended to them is, they weren't able to move around. He had a walker and whatnot, and the family went around with sticky notes, putting their names on everything. And I found that was a really good process, is to put notes on everything that you want to take or things that are going. So, if you're not able to move around, so as you get up in years, it really is helpful to have a visual of where things are going and how they're going to be managed. Because like Leslie said, a lot of these things are memories. They're really, a lot of it is just knowing where those things are going to go. And if they're not going with someone, at least it was something that was thought through. And so that helps people settle. Because I look at it as every room in a home is almost like you almost have to go and say goodbye to each room. And the things that you have to kind of say goodbye to those things, almost like they were your kids, because you have an emotional attachment to these things, right?
Sure.
And they're really important. So if they're handled with grace and emotion and the tactical aspect of it, like Leslie said, it really helps them move on much easier and helps the family as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for the vast majority of people, they're not going to be in their homes forever. There comes a time for a number of different reasons that they downsize to a smaller place, they go into a home or hospitalized, whatever, right? Um, would you both recommend that, like, no matter what stage of life you're on, you should start thinking about this stuff like now?
100%. I always feel like somewhere in your 60s is your magic number if you've stayed in your home a really long time. And maybe you're not moving tomorrow. and you've got an idea that maybe within the next 5 to 10 years you're going to list the house, you know, and you're aging in place a little bit right now. I mean, starting to prepare now and think about the spaces in your house that you're not using. Like, for instance, let's say you're not going down to your basement anymore. You know, let's start to thin out the things that are down there. Let's address those things so that when the time comes, you are ready to go to that smaller space and you've done some of the work ahead of time. I mean, I can't stress it enough. I wish more people sort of planned that way so that when that time hits and perhaps, you know, unfortunate things happen, like your health declines, or you just need to move more suddenly than you thought. The market is good, so you decide you want to list because you want to capitalize on that. Then, you know, this is good work. And it's no, like, you never are going to regret doing some of this work as early as you can, regardless of whether or not you're putting your house on the market now or in 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't agree enough with you, Leslie. I feel sometimes I've had a client that had, she was 95 as well, one of those things, and she was rushing at the end to kind of manage through her things, and that really, or you know, there's a health scare. Sometimes somebody has a health scare in their 70s, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I might need to move sooner than I thought." And these are realities, and when you have health issues, you are not able to manage through some of those things. So we have accumulated so many things over the years. We can buy things on Amazon and it arrives tomorrow, you know, and there's all these things that we have. And to go through, you know, at any age, really just start sorting through everything and just go, okay, what do I need? What I don't need? It's always a good thing, really, no matter what age you're at.
Right.
I recall one day a couple of years ago going to the landfill just to drop something off, and right beside us was a young couple at a van, and it was just things were just being fired to the pit, right? And I was curious. I asked, and they said that their parents had passed away. They didn't want to deal with all this stuff, so
Yeah.
you have to see that.
You know, I'll be working on a job next week where the mom has passed away over a year ago, and the kids just haven't had time to go through the house because they're, you know, midlife, and so they've picked out what they wanted, but the house is really chock block full. The parents have now passed. It's been sitting for a year.
Yeah.
So, you know, the family, you know, would be great if they could capitalize on the market, but the house has not been cleared out. So we will be going in and packing up. The remainder of the house will be either for donation, and unfortunately there is a lot of garbage because, you know, it was 65 years. So that's a scenario that actually unfortunately happens a lot because families don't have the time to address it. You know, the kids are left carrying the ball for when mom and dad passed, and mom and dad just weren't able to let go. They didn't want to. So now, you know, everybody's scrambling, and you know, those are unfortunate incidences that I always think don't need to happen, but this is actually very much a reality of what I see. This a lot in my line of work, where, you know, you're having to kind of pick up the pieces after the fact, you know, and it costs everybody money to do this and to hold on to properties longer, and also like the burden of not being able to move forward in your own lives because you have to deal with mom and dad's home. You've got to take time from work and book off holidays to sort through their things, etc. So it becomes a real burden on families when that is the scenario
Hmm.
that I see.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I feel sometimes it is, you know, it gets to be a lot of work, and especially if your family isn't close by. I mean, I have one family right now. One family member is in Ontario, the other one is in British Columbia. The parents are, you know, passed away here, and I mean, that's a big problem because they're having to again take time off, and not every sibling, and there's 3 siblings, and not every sibling can actually take the time and do that, and you are dealing with those things. So it is really important to kind of go through and even just have that conversation over Christmas or Thanksgiving, or, you know, when you do get together, bring those kind of topics up, because you don't want to be dealing with that at the very end when And
Right.
who gets to take care of those things? That often causes a lot of issues with families.
Mm-hmm.
You want to deal with them ahead of time. So yeah, we highly recommend as early as possible to start the conversation at least.
Right.
Okay, I'm going. I'm going to have to leave you guys now because I'm going through my house and look at.
Yes. Good idea.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks so much, both of you, for joining us today.
Thank you, Mario.
Renata Reid, who is a Calgary Realtor with Sotheby's International Realty Canada, and Leslie Beliveau, who is a professional organizer and downsizer. And less is more. I'm Mario Toneguzzi with Real Estate Spotlight. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.